The Human Torch was leaked, and we got pretty much all of his abilities listed out to us. All of this looks super official. Maybe this is something that ends up changing later, but what I'm seeing here looks exactly what I was expecting to see from the Human Torch. So let's get into some of his abilities. I want to speculate, obviously, because we don't know the exact specifics of everything as to how this is going to work into where he fits into the team, how good he's going to be. We're going to try to cover all that as best as we possibly can. Take this all with a grain of salt. All right, good. All right, let's get into this. First of all, to absolutely no one's surprised, he is a duelist. He is a damage dealing character, a DPS character, and he has a 3-star difficulty, which most of the flyers tend to have slightly higher difficulties anyway. Of course, I should mention it here, he's a flyer. Hopefully anybody who's ever seen the Human Torch ever is not amazed by that. Hopefully that's relatively common knowledge. But yeah, the Human Torch is a flyer, and one of the things that's interesting from this screenshot here, which I'll show, is that he's got a 15% damage boost, the team anchor damage boost coming out the gate, which sounds cool, which sounds great. But remember that some of the characters we have right now are already rocking that damage boost, and most of them aren't really topping the meta. For example, Iron Fist is dominating at the lower ranks, but as soon as he gets to the higher ranks, he falls off relatively quickly, unless your name is Frogger. Yeah, he also has the damage boost, which isn't really doing the most for him. So I'm a little bit concerned that the base damage on the Human Torch isn't that great, but again, all this with a grain of salt. Let's go into his first ability, or his main attack, which is called Fire Cluster, which launches a splittable, quote, splittable fireball. My best guess is that he can obviously press the attack to fire it normally, or he can press it while it's mid-flight to have it split into, I'm gonna say, 3 smaller fireballs that maybe have less AoE or less damage. The idea here being that he can cover a big area. You're soon gonna quickly see that the Human Torch is clearly designed to be an anti-bunch up character, a character designed to shut down teams that are like deathballing or bunching up on a point or just holding hands, whatever you want to call it. And his main attack being something of that sort that deals a big AoE makes a lot of sense. His secondary attack is even more evidence into this. It's called Blazing Blast, which launches a fireball that on the impact site creates a flame field at the targeted area. My best guess with this is that this is a lingering damage spot, and this is on his secondary attack, but we don't know if that's going to mean like it's Scarlet Witch, where it has to charge up over a period of time, or if it's going to be something like, you know, Tony or Iron Man, where it's shared from the same ammo resource. Maybe that it takes a little bit from one and, you know, costs more on the other. We're not entirely certain, but obviously this ability here makes it to where it is a zone lockdown. So maybe you could place this on a health pack, maybe you can place this on an objective, maybe you could place this in an area where an enemy is trying to harass you from, like a sniper, your Hawkeyes, Punishers, rare instances of seeing Black Widow, some lockdown zone potential for him. And these flame fields are a key component to the rest of his kit, because, well, minus his first ability, which is Plasma Body, which just simply allows him to enter a state of accelerated flight, which I assume is probably going to be a resource similar to how Iron Man works, where he can get from point A to point B a little bit faster, but obviously you can't just hold it down the entire time. Probably something like that. His other abilities make it pretty clear that these flame fields are key to how to play him properly. His first ability is called Pyro Prison, which connects his flame fields together to form a literal firewall that deals burning damage to enemies. Yeah, burning damage, which means that we have basically confirmed damage over time effects. Like, this is the first instance I think we have of a true damage over time effect. I don't think that this means that this is going to be an anti-heal or some type of other debuff other than just simply dots, just simply ticking down the enemy's health as they continue to take that damage. And the reason why is that the word burning isn't highlighted. When you look at the other ability and some of the other abilities in the game, you'll see that anytime something is special or causes some type of special effect, it typically gets highlighted. Again, grain of salt. All this is a grain of salt, but it's highly unlikely that this does anything other than just simply, you know, burn the target, trickle down their health bar a little bit. How much damage that is, we don't know. But clearly, just from these abilities that we have here, it's pretty clear that he wants to get into a space, throw down his flame fields, and then just keep enemies from progressing forward. He almost plays sort of defensively in that regard. Like, it seems like his abilities are leaning more on the defensive side, whereas let's say Iron Man tends to play a little bit more offensively, almost like a flanker. Storm almost plays sort of like a pseudo support with how she positions with the rest of the team and how she does what she needs to do. He seems to be the flyer designed for defense specifically. His last ability is Flaming Meteor, which dives him towards the ground and stuns nearby enemies. And remember what I said about burning? Notice notice how the word stun here is highlighted blue. So again, I think this leads even more evidence to the fact that the burn isn't going to do anything above and beyond just simply that damage over time. But cool, this gives him a little bit of ante and allows him to deal with targets presumably who are close enough to him, which is interesting because a lot of characters, a lot of the flying characters kind of sort of struggle with enemies that are like directly on top of them. But this seems like a great counter to those Iron Fists who are flying at you and punching you and kicking you. This seems like one of the perfect tools to deal with those types of characters. I think you get what I'm saying here. He has a better close range defensive tool than any of the other flyers that we've seen so far. And the rest of his kit seems really focused on defense, which means that I think it's pretty clear that the developers are intending to carve out unique identities for each of them, of which the Human Torch fits perfectly into as the one flyer who is focused mostly on defense. I know I've been repeating that a lot, but I really like the direction that they're going with this. But of course, we can't end this without talking about his Supernova, which reads that it unleashes a shockwave to deal damage to enemies within range. During this skill activation, the flame fields will transform into fire tornadoes. So again, even leading further into the fact that the best way to play Human Torch when he comes out is to play heavily around flame field management. This shockwave, I'd imagine, is either going to be probably not maximum pulse where you fire it into an area. I'm guessing it's going to be more of Majin Vegeta or maybe Kaboom from, I think it's Kaboom. Gosh, it's been a while. From Super Smash Brothers. In other words, it's going to be around him specifically. It doesn't specify it that way, but I'm guessing that's going to be the case because something that's similar to what we have with Maximum Pulse on Iron Man would be a little lame. I don't think they're going to be making anything lame. And it's, again, pretty clear that he's trying to keep things off of him, which this would be a great way to do that. Turning the flame fields into fire tornadoes, I don't know if that means that they move. I'm assuming that they do. Do they randomly bump into walls like how Squirrel Girl's ult does? Or do they seek targets directly? Obviously, we don't know, but the fire tornadoes make me think that they deal more damage, maybe cause some type of movement to the enemy, as we've seen with Storm's Hurricane. Her Omega Hurricane ends up actually kind of moving enemies around a little bit, which leads us beautifully into the last bit of information, which is his team-up abilities, which is with none other than Storm. Yeah, I think we all kind of expected him to work with the rest of the Fantastic Four, but nope, Storm is the way to go. And his ability is called Omega Fire, which reads, Storm can consume one of Human Torch's fire tornadoes into her ultimate to ignite her hurricane. Likewise, Human Torch can turn Storm's hurricane into a fiery hurricane with his ultimate, which will then enlarge and intensify any of his fire tornadoes caught in its path. So lots of stuff happening here, lots of intermingling with one into the other. Let's break this down one by one. Storm can consume one of Human Torch's fire tornadoes into her ultimate to ignite her hurricane. I think this means that she has to like run into one of them. She has to actually make impact with one of them in order to ignite them, being that this seems to be what he's mostly going for. And it's interesting that it says the fire tornadoes specifically as opposed to the flame fields, because the only way to get fire tornadoes as it stands right now in Human Torch is with his ultimate. So presuming they both have to pop their ultimates at the exact same time, which makes sense for the second half here. Likewise, Human Torch can turn Storm's Hurricane into a fiery hurricane with his ultimate. So again, it seems like the idea here is that you meant to use both of them at the exact same time in order to create this big pyro hurricane that absolutely wipes out the enemy team, which is scary because Storm's ultimate is already really freaking good right now. Arguably one of the best DPS ultimates in the game as it stands. Like, she's one of the most banned, if not the most banned DPS character in Diamond Plus. So having her ultimate get even better with the Human Torch is frightening. And then the rest of it here, which will enlarge and intensify any of the fire tornadoes caught in its path. So the fire tornadoes amplify the Storm's Hurricane, and Storm's Hurricane amplify the fire tornadoes. Sounds like a recipe for a full team wipe off of this. His kit looks incredible. The biggest thing I don't know about, and the biggest thing obviously on all of our minds, is how much damage is he actually dealing? Because putting all this stuff down obviously on paper sounds great, but if they barely deal any damage, then he's pretty ignorable. But his kit seems really robust. It seems designed to be nice and versatile for handling lots of different stuff. Of course, his counters are always going to be the characters that can hit scan, so Punisher still probably going to do some great stuff for him. It's going to be interesting to see how well that stun ends up working out with the rest of his kit, because it seems like it might possibly be a situation where he doesn't go into the air all the time. Am I making sense? The flaming meteor has him dive to the ground, and then Plasma Body has him enter a state of, quote, accelerated ascent. So maybe this is more of a Pharah from Overwatch situation where he doesn't have true Omni movement. Maybe it's a resource that he has to manage, or maybe it's an option that he can turn off and on. But either way, obviously this is all speculation, so let me know your speculations, thoughts, etc. in the comments down below. Of course, remember to subscribe for more information as we continue to get it. Thank you guys for watching, bless your faces, and deuces.